Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spankers back again with another AoE Mage guide. This time, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to AoE farm one pool Wailing Caverns, 240 plus mobs. Now, you may get somewhere between 235 to 250, but yeah, 240 plus mobs. And this is also a boost. You can charge 10 to 12 gold here. I haven't really wanted to actually test out charging that much, so I've just been charging 8 because I've just been lazy. I haven't want to up the price, explain to people why, all that, you know. But yeah, a ton of mobs. We're going to be pulling all the way back past scrum, and this is super juice once you get it down. As you can see, my last run stopped at 13:32, but my actual kill phase was at 12 minutes. So if you kill all of the mobs and get the kill phase down, you'll be able to do this around 12 minutes. So the first thing that we're going to go over is my gear. I got Watcher's Hand Wraps of Fiery Wrath, just fire damage there. If you want, you can use Instam or you can use the wraps out of the raid. Then we got the Invoker's Cord. This one's probably best in slot. If you want to change this out, I would recommend just getting Instam. Then we got Soul Leech Pants. If you don't want these, you can use Instam or you can use the plus spell damage or fire damage on the auction house. Extra Planner Spider Silk Boots. I would definitely recommend getting these. You can just go into somebody's locked raid ID and get them. And then we got Advisor's Ring. If you need the guide for the boots, by the way, I'll put that down in the description. Then we got the Advisor's Ring. If you don't have this, you can just use Stam Rings. Then we have the Invoker's Void Pearl. If you don't have that, you don't need a trinket there. We have this trinket. I would definitely recommend getting your honor trinkets for stamina. Now we got Phoenix Ignition here. If you don't have this, you can use a 1.4 or 1.51. I'm expecting that most people or most of you have ran the actual raid, so if you have the raid one as well, this one's just better. But if you have the quest one, you can use that as well. That's what I've been using up until I got this. If you don't have the staff, you can use any combination of the main hand offhands in the raid, or you can use Crescent Staff. I would recommend Crescent Staff, or you could use Twisted Chanter Staff at the auction house. Phoenix Bindings, if you don't have these, I would recommend picking them up. They're in the auction house. You won't trade these out for anywhere. They're best in slot for raid as well. Now, I use the Clamweave Tunic. If you don't have Clamweave Tunic, you can use Tier Pieces or Argyl's Chest. I got Fiery Wrath Spell Cape. If you don't have 9, you can get 8, 7, 5, 6, whatever. I would recommend just having at least, I don't know, probably about 100, not 100 spell power, probably like 60, 70. And then Magician's Mantle, I would recommend having this or the one that also comes off the auction house that gives you extra spells and effects or fire damage. I got the Jagbone Necklace. If you don't have any necklaces, you can buy something off the auction house like 1 spirit or 6 spirit, 1 stam, whatever, 2 stam. And then I have green tinted goggles. The alternate to these two would be obviously the honor pieces, or for the helmet, you could use the one out of raid or the one under this in engineering here. Now, as far as everything else, the runes I'm going to be using are Regeneration, Living Flame, and Living Bomb like normal. And then my talents I'm going to be using is 2 out of 2 in Arcane Subtlety, 3 out of 5 in Arcane Focus, 5 out of 5 for Magic Absorption, 3 out of 5 for Arcane Concentration, 1 out of 1 for Arcane Resilience, and then 2 out of 2 for Frost Warding. The reason we want those is because resists give mana, and then armor obviously gives damage reduction, so I would definitely recommend having all of those talents. Now, the next thing we're going to go over is gear in my inventory. So what I bring is I bring magic resistance potions, swiftness pots. These are important for doing this pool because you'll definitely want these if you don't want Cobrahn to reset all the time. Now, you can get Cobrahn to not reset without this. So if you don't have swifty pots, don't panic. It's not a big deal. Then I bring Elixir of Firepower. We'll go ahead and use one. I bring Rumsey Rum Black Label. I will go ahead and use one. I bring minor magic resistance pots. This is good for resistances in the backside of this dungeon because this pool is a little bit longer. So sometimes the mobs have a little bit more of a viable place to actually hit you. Now I use Elixir of Defense. This is great. I use Elixir of Agility for dodge. This is also great. I use Elixir of Minor Fortitude, and I use Elixir of Strong Troll's Blood Potion, which that's an elixir, but I guess it's not labeled as one obviously here. If I don't have a fortitude buff from a priest, which you can get one if you're boosting a priest, but I'll just go ahead and pick up a scroll of stamina too, because that's the best we can get. The next thing I'm going to use is a heavy Crocolus stew, right? Now here's another thing on your chest. If you want regeneration, or I mean absorption, you can use that as well. That's pretty decent. All right, so we got 1192 health. I'm going to go ahead and cast our dampen magic here. You want to have this up throughout the entire pool. It's super, super useful. But we will just go ahead here, open up the stopwatch, and get into the pool. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, you can actually run around this mob. You don't need to Frost Nova it, Polymorph it, whatever. Then you're going to wand these two mobs. Wand this mob and try to get him to drag across that mob. If he doesn't, and you notice that one doesn't pull, you can just wand that one as well. Then we'll jump up and I'll rank 1 fire blast that mob right there. So typically in every single setting here, I'm going to be using rank 1s. So I would just recommend putting those on your bar as well. I got a couple WeakAuras you can use, a couple macros, and a couple add-ons that I'll throw down below. So the one thing that we're going to do is we're pretty much going to face tank those first mobs, counterspell this mob right here, and then we're going to go ahead and blink after we pick everybody up. You will end up hitting the one way back in that corner with a living bomb. Then what we're going to do is on this corner of this rock, we're going to regenerate. That'll kind of give you guys a good timestamp or a time frame of when to use that. And then on this mob right here, we're just going to go ahead and use a living flame. That way we can heal the whole rest of the time that we're going to be running through this part. That mob sometimes doesn't get picked up unless you just aggro him with your face. So what I like to do is save my fire blast for that mob personally. Then down here, by the time that you get here, your counter spell will be back up. So what we'll do is we'll counter spell, face tank, walk into those mobs, and then use a blink out to get over that little edge there. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be polymorphing this mob and then waiting to pull this mob. If you want, you can use Evo here. You can regenerate, whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter. I would recommend regenerating before Evoing. But what I'll do is I'll pull these two mobs together and then I'll just go ahead and jump Frost Nova so they're kind of stuck there. Oops, I've turned on RP run. Then what I'll do is I'll hug this wall right here. If I notice that they're pretty close, I'll just go ahead and blink all the way across. That way they kind of group up. The casters were already casting on me, but typically you want to do that part a little bit faster. Now what I'll do here is run up this ledge. If you just run straight across the ledge, you'll get up it instantly. You'll be perfectly fine. Then what I'll do here is as I'm running, I'll target that mob up there and then use a living bomb on him. Then what I'll do is I'm running here. Those will instantly aggro, so I'll save Fire Blast for this mob here. If you want, you can Mana Shield here and always blink those mobs right there. I wand this one in the back. If you want to use a living bomb, you can. Like I said, if you want to use a Mana Shield here, you can, but I never do, so I'm just going to take it off. Then what I like to do here is I like to cast a living flame here, drag the mobs across. Now I got stunned twice, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to Frost Nova here, kind of give me a little bit of range, and then I will use a swiftness pot because I Frost Nova'd back there, and then I'll use my macro to target Lord Cobrahn and cast a living bomb. I'll drop off and then just blink straight towards this part of the dungeon, so there to here, and then I'll just run straight back up this. And with this, what we've done here is with that blink, we've saved the time that it takes for Lord Cobrahn to reset. Oops, I accidentally casted the living bomb on this mob here, so I'm just going to sheep it till it's done. All right, we'll wait on him to cast one more time. And as you can see, Lord Cobrahn is there. What I'll do, I'll polymorph this mob. We kind of want our mobs to have about 100% health, 90% health, whatever. Then I'm going to wand this mob on the side. Now you can pull those mobs on the first time that you come up here, but I just normally wand them. It's just easier for me. All up to preference. All right, now we'll drop out the side and angle ourselves right here on this ledge. Now what this does is it allows us to pick up all these mobs without really being hit, and we just want to make sure that the dude with the pink diamond right there, which is Lord Cobrahn, ends up at the top of that ramp before we leave. Now here, it doesn't really matter how much HP you have. With the strong Troll's Blood, you'll be healing back a little bit, and you'll be all right. But I would recommend having probably about 600 plus HP going around this part, because you'll need it, because you're going to be face tanking a couple crocs and a couple mobs before your next living flame. So you're not going to use living flame throughout this entire dungeon right here until you get all the way back on the other side and have picked everybody up. What we're going to do is I'm actually going to run this way and pick this mob up just because he's here. And then I'm going to blink because I got dazed. I'm going to use another living bomb, grab both of those mobs, and then I'm going to actually run this way and drop off the edge here. Don't run too far up because it'll just put too much space between you and the mobs later on, and you don't really want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wand that mob, fire blast this mob right here. And then as you can see, I got 5 minutes left of my Dampen Magic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to save up my mana here so I can cast Dampen Magic before I have to cast another spell. If you don't have the wand that's as fast as mine, use a Fire Blast there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply Dampen Magic because I'm full mana again. I'm going to use a Living Bomb, and I'm just going to grab all these mobs together, the Crocs, and then just go ahead and use a Frost Nova there. Now, if you get dazed there, what I would recommend is just blinking instantly. All right. So around 5:45 to 6 minutes, you're going to want to use a minor magic resistance potion. If you don't, the back end of this pool is going to be a little bit more difficult than you would anticipate. So what I like to do there is I like to wand, and then counterspell. As I'm running up here, I'll use a regeneration. Be careful not to get dazed there. And then I'll go ahead and Living Flame that mob right there in that first pack on the side as you get up the ramp. Now what this does obviously allows us to heal up a ton, but it allows us to save our mana because we can tank abilities from those mobs there and get mana back. Mana is super important when getting this pool down 100%. So what we will do here is we won't use any abilities to skip those. If you want, you can counterspell here, but what I would recommend is just saving up your mana. As you can see, we got a couple resists. I'm going to Frost Nova here, and we are basically 100% mana. So right here, I'm just going to go ahead and blink as to not pick up those two mobs because they'll be friendly aggroed anyways. And then I like to jump right here, a little bit past the wall, and then wand those two mobs. If you have a fire starter, you can also wand this mob to not put as much damage down. And then we will use a Living Bomb and a counter spell there. Now I dodge around this way so all the casters don't really hit me, and then I'll blink across. If you want, you can also Living Flame here if you're low on HP, but I would recommend only doing it as soon as you blink. Now what I like to do here is I like to use a walk around these rocks because it'll group up the mobs a little bit better for us when they roll back over. Then we'll grab this mob right here. If you want, if you get dazed right here, you can just Frost Nova. We'll grab these mobs because all these mobs will run up this rock and they'll have to go back down. So you'll be perfectly fine either way. We resisted there. That's really, really good. We'll run around the side here. Try not to pick up any of these mobs on the way in. And then what we are going to do is we are essentially just going to walk straight across these mobs. You can Living Bomb that mob if you want. We'll pick them up on the way back. And then what we will do here is I'm going to use a regeneration about right here so I have it. We'll grab this mob and then we'll use a speed pot as soon as we get past like these rocks or this mushroom. And then what I'm going to do is as I'm running across, I'm going to use a Living Flame on one of the mobs. Preferably the Lashers here would be your best bet. And then once I get around those rocks, I'm just going to go ahead and blink. What that blink does is it allows us to not get struck by a ton of those lightning bolts because there's like 100, right? So what we'll do here is if you want, you can actually Frost Nova right there and grab those mobs a little bit later. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually blink here, which this is a perfect run. So we're going to blink here. We've got a ton of mana left. We're going to grab the rest of these mobs. And then what I'll do is I'll actually Frost Nova right here and just grab every single mob. Blink again. Living Bomb. You can wand this one. I would recommend Living Bomb it for sure. And then Living Bombing all of this here. Now what we'll do is we'll drop off here. If you're too low HP, just drop off instantly. If you have as much as me, you'll be perfectly fine for the rest of the pool. So we'll go ahead right here and we will drop down. Now to get a little bit of my HP back, I'm just going to go ahead and cast a Living Flame right here. I don't recommend doing this unless you know the full entire pool. So you'll actually end up saving it for a lot later on. That mob is just going to be able to give me a little bit of HP back on the run down. Then what we'll do here is we'll actually save our blink, run across these mobs because as you can see, the blue ones are back. So we're going to Frost Nova all the blue ones again just to kind of group the mobs up a little bit better. And then we'll just go ahead and blink up after that. Now here, what you want to do is you want to make sure that that other shambler that sometimes pats up through here isn't there. But if he is, it doesn't really matter. Just Frost Nova him after a couple of seconds and then try to heal up. So I have full mana right here. What I'm going to do is just heal a little bit. I'm going to use another minor magic resistance pot. And then we're just going to walk down. So here what we're going to do is we're going to save our living flame until we're about right here. And then we're going to use it and drag it across all these mobs with a regeneration. And then we're just going to blink. That way we keep our distance in between us and these blue mobs. The reason we want to do that is because we don't want the front ones to hit us and daze us, because that messes with part of the pool. And then we also don't want them to hit us because if they hit us, they turn blue like this here. And they get slowed. So we want these mobs to all be in the same spot, relatively close to the same time. Then we're going to jump and Frost Nova. If one resists, that's okay. You kind of want to wait till those mobs there past that rock. Then you'll just drop down and you'll hit a bandage. Now we're full mana here. So this should be a beautiful kill phase. We're just going to go ahead and bandage up here. Then I'm going to run around this side. And as you can see, we have these mobs that are really, really fast that are going to be running at us. Don't panic here. So what you want to do is use a regeneration, get your full HP. And then what you will do here is let a couple of them hit you. And then go ahead and blink across. Now, obviously, I got stunned there. That's not ideal at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a Frost Nova here. As you can see, it only takes 1 day to really get killed in this pool, but that's okay. So we've made it. We've got a Shambler in the front here that I'm going to cast on. Now I'm going to go right here, use a regeneration, and walk across and Living Flame. Then what I'll do here is cast a couple of Living Bombs. Arcane Explosion, go straight into Arcane Explosioning. And then when it gets down to about 4 seconds, I'm going to jump out, use a grenade, and then go ahead and Arcane Explosion the rest of these mobs down. Now that was a beautiful pull. They will not all look like that, obviously. So if you have any need to reset, what I'm going to do is just use an HP pot. I'm going to go ahead and hit a Evo here. And then I will use a couple of Living Bombs to kind of get the rest of these mobs down. Now, if you want, you can blink in, grab the rest of these mobs, kill everybody down, and then you will be great to go with your next pull. So as you can see, we got almost every single mob down in 12 minutes and 48 seconds. That was super great. We got a couple back here in the back. This is okay. We'll just go back here and pull them all, kill them all. We'll see. This may be our last mob. And then what I like to do, now we're out of combat. That was about a 13-minute run. That was super, super good. What you do after this is I loot Lord Cobrahn, and then I just go ahead and log out in this water. But thanks, everybody. I hope the pool was great. Don't forget to like and subscribe.